Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I like to start with a little bit about me and about my background. For those of you who may not know me, hello, thanks for joining. So my background was in corporate America for over 12 years, managed marketing teams and all of that. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about boundaries is I suffered from a lot of physical health challenges and things of that nature, but some of that was from my own lack of setting boundaries. And so that is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this work and why I got into this at the end of 2019, because I realized that I needed to make some additional changes in my life. And so I started out on that journey to become a yoga and meditation teacher at the end of 2019. And then I also like to expand on that part of my why for doing this is not just about helping myself deal with life challenges in a better way, but also to support others, because I've had a lot of family members and friends and different people that have dealt with more serious mental health challenges. And I believe it starts with some of the lesser issues, like, well, not that it's a lesser issue, but, anxiety, depression, and stress and all of that, that I think over time, if you don't have a way to deal with those things, then it manifests into more serious issues. So I like to just start with education and educating people, before I get started, because I think understanding why we're doing what we're doing helps it stick with you a little bit better. So what meditation is. So meditation is really simply just observational focus of your thoughts and attention. That's basically all that it is. And so tonight we're talking specifically about setting boundaries. And so how does this all tie together? And so setting boundaries, it starts with your mindset. So that's how it all ties in. And so I took a poll recently when I was planning for this series, and it was pretty equal that people voted on setting boundaries and having more energy. And so I kind of put the two together because I feel like some of the reasons why some people may not have as much energy is because you're not setting the proper boundaries, and you're spending your energy on some of the wrong things. And so I know people who are caretakers and people pleasers like myself, or that grew up that way, sometimes have a really difficult time with setting boundaries. But there's something that my dad used to always say. He would have this saying, don't belong so to others that you don't belong to yourself. And when I was younger, I did not understand really what that meant. But as I got older, I kind of got it. That was his way of saying, don't be so consumed by other people that you're not consumed with you and yourself. And you aren't really belonging to yourself. And your life is pretty much about everyone else. So just know that setting boundaries is part of self-care and self-love, and that it's not a selfish thing to set boundaries. And so I also want to share the definition of what boundaries are. So it is a psychological line that helps the person set realistic limits on their participation in a relationship or activity. So not in a way that you just don't want people to get confused that I'm saying just completely go selfish and don't take care of others, but really just consider yourself first. Hello. Thanks for joining. And so if you don't set boundaries, then you have no time and energy left for yourself. And so you are doing a disservice to everybody around you when you don't take care of yourself first. So just in the way that they say on planes that you have to put your oxygen mask on first, like you really can't take care of other people in a proper way if you don't first take care of yourself. Um, and one of the things that I heard someone say that actually helped me is that when you're saying yes all the time to other people, you're actually saying no to something for yourself. And whether that no is just taking your time to recharge, it's still saying no to something for you. And that knowing that or thinking about it in that way helped me a lot to be able to maintain setting the boundaries. And then also think about like if you are needing some type of external validation. I remember a friend of mine mentioned to me one time when I was really struggling with setting boundaries in a lot of different areas. She said to me, "Do you just want to be needed?" And I was like, "Huh, okay." I hadn't thought about it in that way. And so I was like, "Oh, I had been a caretaker for so long. I just identified with being that." And so, yeah, so it's really helpful to kind of think about the why behind what you're doing and why you might be having some of some of those issues. And who are you if you're not the person that everybody has to go to all the time to help and fix everything? So some of the effects of not setting boundaries. So you can actually resent other people, that are in your life when you don't set boundaries. So boundaries are there to maintain the relationship that you have with other people. But do know that sometimes you're going to get pushback. Some people may not be happy, with you setting boundaries with them, but in the end, it's better for you and for them that you establish those boundaries. So it can create a little bit of internal conflict, with yourself if you're not setting boundaries with others, and then you may lose sleep over it. So it can affect your energy. So you only have so much of your energy to go around. And then stress can also, from not having the boundaries in place, can also affect your health. So just know that you can't really pour from an empty cup. And so I visualize that you only have your cup and you only have so much of you and your energy to go around. And then some people talk about that they want to manifest all these great things in their life. So you will not have the time and space and energy to manifest anything new if you don't have boundaries and you're letting other people and things take over all of your time. And so here are some ways that I wanted to share of ways to set boundaries outside of meditation, like before I get to the meditation. And so starting with knowing that no is a full sentence. So I used to get wound up in trying to come up with how I was going to explain that I wouldn't be able to do something and just, what are the words to use and all of that. But sometimes you don't really have to give that long of an explanation. It's just, I'm not able to do that in, however you want to say it in your own way. And so also I recommend, if you're comfortable, having a therapist, because having a therapist will keep you accountable, because those times when you slip back and revert back into your old people-pleasing habits, your therapist will remind you and kind of be that other person that is observing the way that you're interacting with others and kind of remind you of the boundaries that you may have set before that you wanted for yourself. And if you don't have a therapist, I would recommend following. Her name is Nidra Glover Tawab on Instagram, if you're not following her already. So she is a therapist and a boundaries expert, and she has over 1.5 million followers, and she has some excellent posts on things to say when you're looking for the words to say as far as establishing boundaries. So she has a new book that is out that is called Set Boundaries and Find Peace. So that is something that I would recommend. And some of the boundaries that I have set in looking at setting boundaries with your work, whether you work full time at a company or whether you work for yourself, either way, you still have to set boundaries when it comes to your work. And so even for me, in doing the Instagram lives this week, I realized that I didn't consider when the time changed. This actually conflicts with the time. Well, because I walk at sunset, that changes when the time changes. And so I haven't been able to get my sunset walks in this week. So I have to, going forward, when I do the lives, adjust it for my own self-care so I can make sure I'm getting my self-care in. And then when it comes to just the basics of like emails and things like that, I don't respond after 6 p.m. Now, I may still be working after 6 p.m., but a lot of times I will schedule my messages and emails for the next morning because I don't want people to believe that they have access to my time 24 hours a day. Because if people see you responding, then they're going to feel like they have access to your time at all hours. And so, and with the morning time, I try to, I do not respond to any emails or anything like that before I have breakfast. And so I nourish myself first, and then I move on to getting back to everyone and responding to messages and things like that. And then setting boundaries in your relationships. So I just shared today that sometimes you just have to let the phone ring. Okay. So sometimes you may not have the capacity or the energy at that time to answer a call that you may know is going to be something that's going to be draining on your energy. But I'm also not saying that you have to, I guess, always have an avoidant type of style in the way that you handle things. And so you do need to be confident in also knowing what your boundaries are and communicating what your boundaries are. So sometimes, some days it may look like, not answering the phone or taking a little longer till you have the energy to respond back to a message. But eventually at some point you do have to communicate just so the other person is clear on what your boundaries are. And then setting boundaries around your phone and social media and kind of what you're taking into your senses. And so I know I've come across people at times that post things that are just some of the most down and sad things. And so I may sometimes mute their messages. So it's like I don't unfriend them, but I might mute them for a time because I may not be in a place where I can take or have the capacity to take some of the messages that I see from them. If I need to be more or I need to have more uplifting messages around me. And so now we're going to move into the meditation. And so this is really preparing your mind and your mindset to set and maintain healthy boundaries. Because if you don't have your mindset right on self-care and knowing that, that it is a good thing for you and the other people around you, then you may slip back and not be able to enforce those boundaries and keep them in place for your own peace. And so I am going to run through the SOULESTA Soul Meditation method. And so that starts with your senses. So that's where we start. The S is for your senses. And so that is the quickest way to me that you can ground yourself through any situation, is focusing on all of your senses and also incorporating breathing techniques each time, because that signals to your body that you are not in a stressful situation if you have the time to breathe. And so I'm just going to take you through this time a visualization exercise. And so the visualization is, we're going to visualize a battery. And so you can have your eyes closed. It's probably easier with your eyes closed, but you don't have to have your eyes closed. But have your hand on your gut area, because we're going to focus on listening to your gut. And so as your hand is on your gut area, so just take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And I want you to visualize that you have a battery that is attached to you. And so your battery charges every night when you're asleep, but you only have enough energy in the battery that is going to last you throughout that day only. And so as you continue breathing, imagine that every time you say yes to something, that battery gets depleted more and more and more. But when you say no to something, you might get a little bit more energy. And so when things come up as you go on, keep in mind this visualization of the battery. And is it something that's worth depleting your energy? Or is it something that is worth, or that is giving you more energy? And so keep that visualization in mind, and so you can come back to the present moment, but keep that in mind, the battery, anytime that something comes up, and just think about it. Like, is it worth giving your energy over for that day, the energy that you have? Is it going to be worth that? Or is it something that you might just have to graciously say no to? And then now we're going to try a chair yoga pose. This is actually called the fish pose. And so you take your hands and put them behind you. So they're going to be flat behind your back. And so you're going to kind of scoot up in front of the chair and then have your neck facing up. And so this is a pose that kind of elongates your neck and throat area. And so this is for you to keep in mind having confidence to use your throat to be able to communicate your boundaries. So you can stretch, and again, your palms are down on the chair behind your back, and you're going to stretch up, but this stretches your neck and your throat muscles up. So you can hold this for a few seconds and breathe here, and then bring it back. But this is really just for you to keep in your mind that you want to be able to kind of strengthen your throat muscles to be able to communicate what your boundaries are. And so I also like to do variations of a body scan each time. And so the body scan is so great just for, I guess, being in tune with your body. But with this body scan, so as you're scanning your body from the feet up, you're going to really focus on checking your gut, doing the gut check. And so whenever any situation comes up that you're faced with making a decision, check how it feels to you in your gut, because I hear people say all the time, yeah, after something goes left or doesn't go the right way, we're like, oh, I just had a gut feeling. I had a feeling. But for some reason, we ignore the feeling. So when something comes up, pay attention to that feeling. And as you're scanning your body, pay attention to how it feels in your gut when someone asks you to do something or something comes up. And if it doesn't feel right to you, pay attention to that. And then the O is for observing. So just observing what thoughts and emotions that are coming up. And then the U is for using facts and affirmations of what you know to be true. So for some affirmations for setting boundaries, I've got 3. And so one is, I am worthy of self-care. So that just simply that, I am worthy of self-care, because lack of boundaries contributes to a lack of self-care. The second one is, it's okay to say no. So knowing that it's okay to say no. And as I said earlier, no is a full sentence. And the third affirmation is everyone doesn't need to like me. So for some people, that can be really hard because they want to be liked, but not everyone is going to like you. And especially when you start setting boundaries because they don't get everything that they want from you all the time, whenever they want it. So sometimes it can take an adjustment for people. So that's why it's best for you to communicate. When there are changes in your boundaries, you do need to communicate that to the people around you. But just know that everyone doesn't need to like you, and that is okay. But well, from what I've found, they will respect you though for setting the boundaries. And then lastly, the L is for love and let go. So this is just around every time, just having compassion for yourself and having compassion for others. You're not going to get it perfect every time. Sometimes you might slip back and, kind of forget, what boundaries you had in place and go backwards, and that is perfectly fine and okay. And you just start again the next day. And so you just move forward and release anything that doesn't serve you. And so just running through my routines, I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I start my day not looking at any notifications from anyone. So sometimes, if I don't eat breakfast until, say, if it's 9 or 10 and my friends got up at 5 or 6, then I might be the last one responding in the chat at at 9 or 10. And so, but everything is not urgent. So that's also another thing that I've learned. Everything isn't urgent. And even if it is, people have, ways of getting in contact with you, like even if it is urgent. And so, but the main thing is to start your day and end your day from a peaceful place and not from, a place of anxiousness and stress and worry, in an anxious place. And so just keeping those reminders of things that you can do all throughout the day. And sometimes if you need to take time, to just take some deep breaths here and there. If somebody's trying to create a stressful situation for you, sometimes you just got to take a time out and just do your breathing exercises on your own wherever you are. So